Hey everybody, it is Mike Petralia, Trags, back with another episode of the JungleRoar podcast on the JungleRoar podcast YouTube channel. It is my pleasure to welcome back an old friend from the, CLNS days
Alum.
back in New England, the one and only Evan Lazar, now having moved on to Patriots.com. You can follow Evan on Twitter at Lazar. See, I remembered, Evan. And that is all one word, Lazar. Evan does a great job, not only following the Patriots on Twitter and covering the Patriots on Twitter, I should say, but he also has Patriots Catch 22 at Patriots.com. It is my pleasure to welcome back the one and only Evan Lazar. Good to see you again, my friend.
It's good to see you as well. This is going to be a fun weekend for us. It's the Trags Bowl. I'm very much looking forward to it. And I can't wait to see you in the press box at Gillette again on Saturday. That's going to be very nostalgic for me and for Alex, and I'm sure for you as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
It is going to be a lot of fun. The Alex, of course, that Evan Lazar is referring to is the one and only Alex Barth. So I'll catch up with him. He does a great job covering all things Boston sports for 98.5, the Sports Hub. All right, Evan, what the hell happened Sunday in Vegas? What happens in Vegas is not staying in Vegas.
No, and I think this actually starts with the Raiders. I think this actually starts with the Patriots' last offensive possession before the possession that we all are talking about, right? Where
they
had the football with a little bit over 2 minutes to go, and it's 3rd and 10, and the Patriots decide to run a naked bootleg with Mac Jones, and they try to sneak him out the backside of the formation. And when I watch the play back on the film, the interesting thing is that they're on the left hash. So they had no choice but to run the naked to Max Crosby's side of the field. And if they had been on the other hash and it was to Chandler Jones's side of the field, then I think that Chandler Jones would have been more prone to take the cheese than Max Crosby was. And unfortunately, Max Crosby makes a good play. He sees it coming, reverses field, and then it's a race to the corner versus Mac Jones. And I think we all know who's going to win that race. So Max Crosby tackles him for a short gain, and that causes the Patriots to then punt the football back to the Raiders. And at that point, I think, on the one hand, you look at it.
Patriots, by the way, are up 24-17 at that point.
Right. So if they get a first down, the game is over. The game is over, effectively. And I think at that point, in my head, I'm thinking, you know what? The bootleg was actually, it could have tricked them, right? You could see how they would have thought that the last thing that the Patriots would do would be to put the ball in Mac Jones's hands to have him run with it. And they could have tricked him. But at the same time, your quarterback that runs like a 4.7 or a 4.8 trying to win the race to the corner against a defender just really isn't, it's probably not the best way to try to pick up a first down there. So they basically waved the white flag on 3rd down. They punt the football back to the Raiders. And then I thought for the first 40-ish yards of the Raiders drive, they went into sort of like a prevent mode, right? Where they're playing off coverage on the outside and cover 3 mostly. And they're just kind of backing off and giving them the yards underneath. And like so many teams have done all year, and I think that this is a big problem, Trags, and I'm sure you've seen it in some of your games. I think this is a big problem all around the league, is getting stops in these 2-minute drills at the end of games, where teams are just way too lackadaisical with what they're calling defensively, and all of a sudden it becomes 2nd and 10 from the 30-yard line, and all it is one shot to the end zone, and it's a tie game. Now, was he in bounds? Was he not in bounds? I mean, that's not here nor there, honestly, at this point. But they didn't really get aggressive with their defensive play call until the Raiders were already in Patriots territory, which at that point it felt like it was almost too late, right?
Yes. And if that touchdown had been overturned, the Raiders still had 2 downs left in that possession.
Right. And that's sort of why, as much as I want to blame the refs for the call, that's why I come back to I'm not sure the Patriots defense is stopping them anyways, right? You got two more cracks at it with Devontae Adams and Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow and Josh Jacobs. Like, I still think they might score. So the call that they made on the touchdown was a call that they had made earlier in the game, and it's a 3 cloud coverage, which means that instead of traditional cover 3, it shades over to one side of the field. And the side of the field that it obviously was shading over to was Devontae Adams' side of the field. So they have a corner underneath Devontae Adams in the trail position, and they have a safety over the top. So they're basically high-lowing Devontae Adams on that side of the field to force the football elsewhere. But what happens is it creates one-on-one matchups everywhere else, right? Everywhere else is one-on-one. And I think that this is another problem that the Patriots have been having, which kind of spins it forward to the Bengals game on Saturday.
Which is what every Bengal fan wants to know. With T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, both healthy, and of course, Jamar Chase being Jamar Chase, how in the world are the Patriots going to go about, given what you just described, go about defending the Bengals star receivers?
Right. And this, I think, is a great spin forward for that, because this, to me, and we've had this argument on our shows on Patriots.com, me and Paul Perillo getting into it, because Perillo, when they came off the Minnesota game, was like, Justin Jefferson dominated that game. Like, they couldn't take him out. What are we talking about? And I was like, I actually thought that the other guys hurt them more than Justin Jefferson, because as good as Jefferson was in that game, he had 2 big catches in that game. And I thought the Patriots really overreacted to Justin Jefferson, and all of a sudden that you got 2 or 3 guys running to Justin Jefferson, and it's leaving Jalen Mills one-on-one with Adam Thielen with 30 yards of space for the 2 guys to work with. And you're like, wait a second, where's the help? Where's anybody else? And everybody else is all the way over here covering Justin Jefferson. So on the last Raiders offensive play of the game, they run this 3 cloud coverage that had worked earlier in the game. They high-low Devontae Adams, and Keelan Cole is one-on-one with Marcus Jones on the other side of the field with no help, right? It's just one-on-one island coverage. And unfortunately, as good as Marcus Jones has been in it, and this is what stinks, I think, about how the game ended, is that all the players involved in the ending have been great for the Patriots this year. Marcus Jones, Jacoby Myers, Ramondre Stevenson, these are some of their best players this season. And Marcus Jones gets beat at the catch point, inbounds, out of bounds, whatever. And this is the one thing, is he's 5'7", right? Maybe 5'8" on a good day. And so if you throw these balls up in the coverage, he's not going to win jump balls. It's just not his skill set. And because they have to play him on the outside because Jalen Mills and Jack Jones are injured, they have no choice but to put a 5'8" corner, 5'7" corner on one side. And on the other side, Jonathan Jones is 5'7", 5'8". So they have 2 very small corners, and Miles Bryant in the slot is small as well. So they're playing 3 small corners. And that, to me, I think, is the biggest thing that I look at with this matchup with the Bengals, is that if Jalen Mills and Jack Jones are not back for this game, then they're going to be running 3 corners that are under 5'8" out there against T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, which is obviously a gigantic mismatch down the field at the catch point. And that, I think, is my biggest concern about this game and about the Patriots moving forward, is I have some confidence. Just they held Devontae Adams to 4 catches for 28 yards. He was a non-factor basically for this entire game. So I have confidence that they're going to maybe have something ready for Jamar Chase and be able to take him out of the game for the most part. But how do they take a T. Higgins out of this game, right? How do they take Tyler Boyd out of this game and take Jamar Chase out of the game? I don't know if they have the horses to do all of that. Specifically, you look at in the past, they've had number 1 corners, right? They've had Stephon Gilmore, they've had Darrelle Revis, and those guys could go out and take a Jamar Chase one-on-one for periods of time. They just don't have that guy right now. And they did better against Adams, I would say. Marcus Jones had a great pass breakup down the field early on in that game. Jonathan Jones had him a few times in single coverage. It wasn't all double teams and safeties over the top and stuff like that. It wasn't. But it was a lot of calculated, knowing where he is in zone, knowing where the help needs to be in man and stuff like that to basically force the football elsewhere.
Nobody breaks down film like you do. Nobody, and nobody breaks down the X's and O's like you do. Let's go to the other side of the ball. Speaking with Evan Lazar of Patriots.com. Follow him on Twitter at EZLazar, all one word. All right. Mac Jones. I think a lot of Bengals fans from the outside want to know if this kid is mentally tough, if he's got the acumen, the mental fortitude, if you will, to handle a full-time starting job as quarterback in the National Football League. Because from the outside, we see a lot of the whining, the yelling, the frustration with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, whoever is calling the offense up. Of course, that's Matt Patricia. But we all want to know from the outside, looking into New England, is Mac Jones the guy in New England going forward?
It's a great question. And part of me wants to say that it's undecided or unknown because of the staff and the hand he was dealt this year was such a mess. You want to compare it to like Trevor Lawrence last year or Justin Fields for the first, 15 games, 16 games of his career. It's been a disaster here in New England from a coaching standpoint. And I think the final play of the game, which I realized that I didn't actually get to because I talked about all the other stuff, the final play of the game, I wish I could sit here, Trags, and say that's a one-off. Like we were talking about the Miami Miracle before we hit record. The Miami Miracle felt like a one-off, right? Where Miami had a great play, great hook and ladder design. They caught the Patriots with Rob Gronkowski thinking Hail Mary instead of a hook and ladder, and they ran a great play and they finished it off. This was entirely self-inflicted. It was a complete mental and just total complete disaster. And it's Tuesday. It's been 2 days since the game, and Alex and I are still texting back and forth. How did that just happen?
I have a theory. Let me jump in here.
Yeah.
And I heard somebody else espouse this on 98.5 Sports Hub. I think it was Big Jim Murray. I'm not sure. Yeah. But I think Ramondre Stevenson gets down the field 25 yards and the thought goes through his mind, oh no, we've got a chance here to make something crazy and special happen, because God knows the offense as it isn't working efficiently. It's not working. What's the word I'm looking for? The way an NFL offense should work. It's just the Patriots are not doing things that normal NFL offenses do. So here's a chance in a one-off to make a crazy play work. Here, Jacoby, you find somebody to throw the ball to, just create something to win the game on the last play, because there's no confidence in the offense that once they get to overtime, they're going to be able to do anything. And I think there's legitimacy to that theory.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a place for that. And the only other logical explanation that I can come up with, and I was in the scrum after the game with Jacoby Myers, and I plan on saying this on our air later, that it was, I give him all the credit in the world for standing there and answering the questions and taking full accountability and responsibility, and with tears in his eyes, probably the worst day of his life is, what I would imagine it was. And he stood there and answered questions about it. And I asked him, and I looked him right in the eye when I asked him, because I wanted to see if he was lying. And I asked him, did you know the score was tied? Did you? Because the only other explanation I can come up with is that they thought, for some reason, he thought that they were losing. And then the hook and ladders and the laterals and all that stuff makes more sense, right?
Right.
Or your theory, which is that they thought the best way to win the game at that point was to go play, playground, lateral, whatever you want to call it, and try to make something happen. And he said that he was trying to be a hero. He was trying to be a hero. Now, the only way that I can fathom that theory is if he was throwing the football back to somebody other than Mac Jones, right? If they had, and this is getting crazy, but if they had a play designed where he's throwing the football back to Marcus Jones, or he's throwing the football back to Ramondre Stevenson, or somebody that can actually do something with it once they get it, then I could say, okay, maybe they thought, here's a former quarterback in high school that can throw the football. We're going to have him throw it across the field to a wide open guy because the defense is never going to expect it. And the guy's going to then take it 50 yards. That, like, it's not logical, but at least it's a better explanation as to what actually happened. But I wish I could sit here and say that this was a one-off and this was just a player making a dumb play and we can just write it off as such. But this is a buildup and a microcosm of a broken offense. This has been an offense that has had mental miscues, not on this scale, obviously, but has had mental miscues all year long. You know, pre-snap penalties, dumb situational football where it's a 2-minute drill and guys aren't running out of bounds to preserve clock, or Mac Jones is taking sacks in the middle of the field to burn timeouts, red zone, goal line sequencing like earlier in the game where they call a timeout, wipes out a touchdown, they false start, wipes out a touchdown. Like, this is what's been going on all season long with the Patriots. They have not offensively, they have been horrible on the details, horrible in the margins. And you actually look at this game, they rush for over 200 yards. They move the ball decently well at times. The passing game was horrible, but the passing game was horrible because of route spacing, poor third down play calling, just in general details, right?
Right.
Just being good at scheming it up. And that's what I wrote in my film review today or yesterday, was that on third down, the Raiders knew what was coming, and the Patriots, when they ran their routes, their routes are being run directly into defenders, right? Defenders are just sitting there waiting for these routes, and there's nothing to counter off of it. There's no other answer for it. So as much as I thought Mac Jones's accuracy in this game, especially in the first half, was off, a lot of the reason why he had basically career lows across the board in completion percentage and yards other than that win game last year in Buffalo was because he's going back to pass and their receivers are just running directly into defenders, leverage or help, and there's just no place to go with the football. And this is against a Raiders secondary that's dead last in the league in most passing categories. So this is a horrible pass defense that they can't move the football on. So, like I said, as much as I want to write this off and say that this was a freak one-off play, this was a buildup of 14 weeks of ineptitude on offense, manifesting itself in probably the worst play you'll ever see. And that this is exactly, they had this coming. Like, this is exactly what they get for putting the players in this position.
Okay. And everybody on the outside also wants to know, is Matt Patricia a one and done in New England? Because for all the world, it feels like he's going to be one and done and he's not going to get another chance in New England. Either Bill's going to recognize it first, or Bill's going to be told by the Crafts, Matt Patricia cannot come back as offensive coordinator in 2023.
Yeah, you mentioned Mac and his emotions too. This is something that goes back to Alabama when Nick Saban used to call him McEnroe, because he used to have these, explosive moments in practice where he would just blow his head off. And I think that there is merit to that he has got, it's a shit hand. Right, Matt Patricia's bad at his job. The offense is an absolute mess. It's a crap hand, but he's got to learn to manage his emotions better. And there's no doubt about that. And when it comes to Matt Patricia, I think it's more the second one, honestly, because I think for Bill, he can talk himself into, it was his first year on the job. Nobody's good at calling plays and coordinating a side of the football in year one. And it takes most people multiple seasons to learn it and get good at it, and we're going to give him time to develop in the role. Like, I could see that being something that he believes. Maybe they go out and get him some help with a veteran offensive coach coaching the offensive line, or coaching
Right.
quarterbacks or something like that to kind of help him. But I think the main thing is what you pointed to with the Crafts. And now that I am on the inside, as they say, you sort of feel this a little bit more in my position than maybe you do as a standard beat writer. And that is, from a marketing and a likability standpoint, the team is unwatchable. The team is unwatchable. And at some point in time, I think the Crafts, Mr. Kraft, he mentioned at the owners meetings last year that they haven't won a playoff game since 2018. And that really bugs him. Now we're going to go on another year, most likely, unless some amazing, fortune happens for the Patriots, where they're probably going to miss the playoffs. And I think that at some point in time, I don't think we're at Bill yet, right? I don't think we're there yet for the Crafts, but I do think that they're going to look at Bill and say, this didn't work. And there's going to be a little bit of feet to the fire of, we need a real offensive coordinator. I would say they probably need another offensive coach on the staff that has experience, that has some knowledge on that side of the football as well. And Matt is going to go back to the role he was in last year as that, like, Mike Lombardi quality control special projects role, where he's out of the public eye. So I think that that's going to be a mandate from the Crafts. I do. How Bill reacts to that is going to be interesting, but I think that it's going to be a mandate. And my hope is that once they have that conversation, Bill is like, you know what, you're right. Like, I already knew this, but you saying this to me and giving it out, laying it out like this is what we got to do. Like, you're right.
Okay. You know as well as anybody that one thing Bill Belichick has been a master of over the years is going up against brilliant quarterbacks and winning the chess battle. I want to get from your perspective what impresses you so much about Joe Burrow and how Bill Belichick might approach him.
Well, I think what impressed me so much about him, and I've said this in the past, that I truly believe from a physical tool standpoint, I know some of your Bengals fans are going to hear this and grab the pitchforks, but I think from a physical tools standpoint, that Mac Jones and Joe Burrow are not that far off, right? Like, in terms of arm strength, athleticism, and all that kind of stuff. But what I think Joe Burrow has, and it goes back to you pointing out that Mac has lost his cool a couple of times, more than a couple of times over the last 2 or 3 weeks, month or so here, is that coolness, right? Like that confidence, that mental
composure on the field, no matter. So when people have asked me, Evan, the Tom Brady, who obviously we just saw in Tampa, Brady, Joe Burrow comparison, when they ask me what does Joe Burrow do that reminds you of Tom Brady, my immediate answer is the way he handles pressure situations in the fourth quarter. It's remarkable to me how similar they are. And that's what you don't see with Mac Jones.
Right.
And I think with Joe Burrow, he is Joe Cool. He is not going to let the moment impact his decision-making on the field.
Right. And that is for a quarterback, that's a monumentous thing, right? Like, that's a gigantic thing for a quarterback. And when I watch Burrow and I watch this entire Bengals offense, I tweeted this out the other day when I was watching them. This is we have better players than you offense. This is not an offense. This is not like when I watch
a scheme.
Right. This is not like when I watch McDaniel in Miami, or the Shanahan tree in general, for the most part, Shanahan in San Francisco, where there's guys moving all over the place, and, blockers are taking these different blocking angles that they're getting to from motion or from pre-snap stuff. And there's guys over here and there's guys over there, and there's fakes and there's reverses. And that's not what's happening with this Bengals offense. This is a line it up, snap the football, and we have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon when he's healthy, and you can't stop us. If we just run it at a high level like we're capable of doing, you can't stop it. And that I think there's something to be said for that. Like, as cool as watching the McDaniel offenses are, or Kyle Shanahan's offense and all these other gadgety style offenses is, and as a scheme guy, it's like, this is like, this is the holy grail, right? To have offenses designed like that. As cool as that is, sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel when you just have good players. And I think that's where the Bengals are at this point. I was really surprised, and I know they didn't have the best offensive performance against Cleveland. I haven't fully broken down the Tampa Bay game yet, but I was really surprised against Cleveland how rudimentary some of their passing concepts are, and I think that the Patriots and Matt Patricia get a lot of flack for being too simple and high school-y and basic, right? But the Bengals are not that far removed from that simplicity, but they just have much better players than the Patriots do, and so they run it at a very high level. And I think it's also fun, I think, also to agree with this Bengals offense, that a lot of the different things that they run are borrowing from other systems.
Yes,
but they have like 6 different systems, right? Like, where they're like, oh, we're going to take from the Shanahan tree, which I would say would be the foundation of what they are, right? Is West Coast Shanahan. But we're also going to take some from the spread family, because that's what Burrow and Chase ran in college. And we're also going to take some of the old school under center stuff. And it's basically a combination of all of it into one offense. And they're just able to run it, I think, because of Burrow, because Burrow has the smarts, the intelligence, and the composure to be able to run a bunch of different things. And that, I think, is also very Brady-like, where, they can put them under center, they can spread it out, they can run it out of this formation, that formation, this personnel grouping, that personnel grouping, and Burrow will put the pieces together once they're out at the line of scrimmage, which I think is a lot like Brady as well.
Defensively, I don't think the Bengals throughout the year have gotten enough credit for how solid their defense is and how Lou Anarumo schemes it up. You're facing a Bengals team that is banged up. You're not going to have Trey Hendrickson. You're not going to have Sam Hubbard, two of their 2 big star defensive ends. They are not going to be available. Joseph Assad, second-year player out of Texas. He is a player to keep an eye on. But if you want Patriot fans to look for the heart of the Bengals defense, DJ Reader, BJ Hill, middle of the line, both of them are having all-pro seasons.
Yeah, I first on the scheme, they, as simple as they are on offense, they're the opposite on defense, right? On defense, they spin the dial just as much as any defense in the league that I've seen, other than maybe the Patriots, to be honest with you, which is to tell you that that's a very sophisticated, advanced scheme. They change the picture. They blitz from different areas. They run simulated pressure. Like, they do it all. Like, they do all the little tricks and gadgets and gizmos. And I think in a lot of ways, obviously they do the drop 8 stuff, which they did against Kansas City. I don't know if they'll drop 8 against the Patriots. They probably don't need to, but they do all that stuff against, the better passing teams as well in the league. I'm sure they did it some against Brady on Sunday. And a lot of that stuff, I think, is the opposite of their offense, where defensively they might not feel like their personnel is elite. And so they were able to go on this run last year, for example, by smoke and mirrors a lot of the time on defense. And I'm giving them credit for that. I'm not trying to take shots at their players on defense.
I follow that.
And the other side, the other side of it, you mentioned DJ Reader, who, watching that Browns game and watching some of their past games on over the weekend, he's one of the best defensive tackles I've seen all year on tape. I mean, this guy is absolutely fantastic in every way, and he's got power. I think his lateral ability to move across the line of scrimmage and run guys down from behind, or get all the way from like the A gap or the nose all the way out to the sideline and make tackles out there is rare. He is an absolute force. And you look at this Patriots offensive line, they've been weaker at tackle, I would say, than interior line this year, but the line hasn't been perfect by any means for long stretches of the season. So he's somebody that will be in my key matchups, and someone they have to take care of, because I think the Patriots are going to want to run the football a little bit on Saturday, build off the 200 yards they rushed for against the Raiders, and try to obviously keep the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands and win time of possession. So I think there will be a lot of elements of that. I think for the Patriots defense against Burrow, this will be a lot like the Bills game, I believe, where they try to win some rounds, right? Like, you're not going to win all the rounds, but if you can get an interception here, a strip sack there, force a punt, maybe win 4 drives, 5 drives, something like that, I think they're going to feel pretty good. And then it will be ball control possession on offense.
We are not going to see Matthew Judon in coverage, are we, this week? We're going to actually see Matthew Judon getting after the quarterback, and Christian Barmore, first game back, 35 snaps, I believe it was. I love Christian Barmore, and he is a huge player for Bengals to get to know Saturday.
Yeah, he played well, I thought, in his return. Looked good, looked healthy, looked strong. So I think that's a good thing for the Patriots. Judon dropped into coverage 9 times on Sunday against the Raiders. I think it felt a lot more because a lot of it was on 3rd down, right? So they're dropping him off in 3rd down. Now, I like the theory of what they're doing, which is they're running these creepers or these simulated pressures where the idea is that the tackle has to account for Judon, whether he's dropping or rushing. The tackle is going to set out to him regardless, right? So that takes the tackle away from the rest of the pass rush. And what they're doing is they're dropping Judon and then blitzing Juwan Bentley mostly up the middle.
Like a zone blitz, sort of.
Right. And then what's happening is the line is sliding out to Judon, and then the pressure is coming from a different direction. Right. And then there's nobody to pick up Bentley. So it's a fun scheme. It's a sound way of doing it. And I think what they've mostly done is they've turned Judon into a decoy. Right. They basically just said, all right, if you're going to.
The Bengals will settle for that, Evan. If you want to turn one of your best players into a decoy, the Bengals are going to sign up for that every day.
Yeah, so it's, they're saying, okay, if you're going to chip them, if you're going to slide the protection that way, if you're going to do different tricks that offenses have to deal with an elite pass rusher, we're just going to use them as a decoy, and we're going to trust our blitz. We're going to trust Josh Uche on the other side to win his one-on-one and to get home and create a pass rush. And I think at times it's worked. And it worked effectively against the Raiders for most of the game, but I think what you see is towards the end of the game, especially in that final drive that the Raiders had the football in the 2-minute drill, good players make good plays in big moments, right? And when Judon is basically out of rhythm from rushing the passer and isn't really a part of the passing game plan as much because they're doing these different sim pressures and dropping him off and things like that, when they need a play with 1 minute to go in the 4th quarter, he's not a part of it, right? And that, I think, is a massive indictment of what they're doing to a degree. And I'd also say on the very last play of the game, not the very last play of the game, the Keelan Cole touchdown.
Yes.
Josh Uche, for some reason, isn't on the field. I don't know why, but he plays the entire series, the entire drive. And on that play, they subbed him off for Anthony Jennings for some reason. Maybe he was gassed. Maybe he got dinged up on the play before. It's something I hope that I can ask him this week. But they took their second best pass rusher off the field in the biggest moment of the game, which really didn't do them any favors either. So that is, I think, a big question mark, or big coaching, question mark as well. But I agree with you that in on the whole, they have to find, Judon had 1 hurry in this game.
Yeah, it's not.
That's not
what you expect from Matthew Judon.
Yeah, and I know last year a lot of people are saying, well, he faded down the stretch last year. Remember Chandler Jones used to do this all the time too, where he'd have like 10 sacks in the first 10 games and then they wouldn't hear from him again. I hope that Judon isn't in that similar mold as Chandler Jones, or old, young career Chandler Jones. But the last 2 seasons, the numbers at least have not been there for Matthew Judon down the stretch. He's had great first 13, 14 games of the year, and in the last 4 or 5 games of the year, he's faded. And they need to find a way to get him back to where he was, to start the year over the last 2 seasons, because like I said, when it's third down, second down, third down, game is on the line, and you need a rush, you need a play, you need the rush to get home. That needs to be your guy, right? Number 9 needs to be the guy that's in the backfield, and right now he hasn't been.
As I always caution Bengal fans or anybody watching the Patriots after a game like Sunday, beware of Bill Belichick, beware of the Patriots. And Bengal fans know the history. They've never won at Gillette Stadium. So they know they're going into a place that has been truly a house of horrors. It was the site of On to Cincinnati in 2014.
Right.
And I remember that game 43-17 extremely well. You never count out a Belichick team, even at this point of the year, coming off a hideous loss. They're 7-7. We know the story. The Bengals 10-14. They are certainly playing not only for first place in the AFC North. They've got an outside chance, Evan, if they win out to become the number 1 seed. If Kansas City trips up along the way, they will be the number 1 seed. That's what a lot of Bengals players have told me, including DJ Reader after the game again on Sunday night in Tampa. We still want that number 1 seed. So there was a lot on the line in Trags Bowl on Saturday afternoon, 1:00 at Gillette Stadium. I cannot wait to get back there to see all of my old friends, including the one and only Evan Lazar. He does a great job covering the Patriots 22, right? Patriots 22 on Patriots.com. You can follow him on Twitter at EZLazar, all one word. There's nobody, and I mean this from the bottom of my football heart, there is no one that does a better job in football breaking down film than one Evan Lazar, and it is a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you. Yes. Bengals fans, I do scouting the opponent article every single week. So this week it'll be scouting the Bengals, obviously, where I break down a lot of the schematic stuff of the opponent and the chess match and X's and O's. So if you want to give that a read, it usually comes out on Thursdays. So it'll be up on Thursday through the weekend, and that piece will be 90% about the Bengals. So that's all about their schemes and their X's and O's and their key players and stuff like that.
He is Evan Lazar. I'm Mike Petralia, Trags. Thanks so much for watching this episode of the JungleRoar podcast.